Something strange was happening out on a quiet Midwest farm. Late at night, a farmhand notices a car parked at the edge of a cornfield. No driver, no movement, just beams of light sweeping slowly through the stalks. So he walks toward it, uneasy, until he spots a man crouched down, digging in the dirt like he's looking for buried treasure. The stranger sees him, panics, sprints to the car, and speeds off into the dark. But the farmhand caught the license plate. He reports it, the FBI steps in, and soon they discover the man behind the lights, Hailong, a Chinese national already on their radar. He wasn't joyriding, he was part of an agricultural espionage ring targeting elite genetically modified corn developed by American industry giants. Mo eventually gets caught, sentenced, and deported. But the bigger story, what China decided to do after this incident. Because for Beijing, sneaking through Iowa cornfields is a risky, low-yield strategy. If you want the best seed technology, why steal kernels when you can buy the entire company that makes them? And that single question set China on a path toward the largest overseas acquisition in its history, the $43 billion purchase of Syngenta, one of the world's biggest agricultural technology companies. Today, we're diving into the business story behind it and how food, genetics, and geopolitics collided in China's race to secure its future. Grab a drink, this one goes deep. Modern China looks nothing like the China of the 1960s or 1980s. Hundreds of millions have moved into the middle class, and with higher incomes come new expectations, especially at the dinner table. More protein, more meat every day. In the early 1960s, the average person in China ate about 4 kilos of meat a year. Today, closer to 70 kilos. And pork is king. China now consumes about 1/4 of all the meat eaten on Earth, and about half of the world's pork. That kind of appetite requires staggering amounts of feed. Corn, soybeans, and other crops grown thousands of miles away. Which brings us to China's core problem.
China may be massive on a map, but its farmable land is limited. 18 to 20% of the world's population. 7 to 9% of the world's arable land. Around 6% of fresh water. Much of that farmland has been eroded, overused, or polluted. Northern China, a major grain region, faces chronic water shortages. So Beijing is stuck with an impossible equation. More people eating more meat on too little land with not enough water and rising environmental stress. That's why China depends heavily on foreign grain and soy imports, especially from the US and Brazil. In fact, it buys over half of all soybeans traded globally. This dependence scares China's leadership. One trade war, one shipping disruption, one political crisis, and feed prices skyrocket. Then pork prices jump. Then the public gets angry. And in China, food security isn't just economics, it's political stability.
In 2018-2019, African swine fever ripped through China's farms. It wiped out around half of the country's pigs. Pork prices doubled, imports surged, billions of dollars evaporated. For Beijing, this disaster made one thing clear. Dependence on foreign feed and fragile domestic supply chains is a national security risk. Solving it required more than buying grain. It required better technology. China realized it needed seeds that could produce higher yields, use less water, resist pests, survive drought, deliver more grain per acre. Modern genetically modified crops can do exactly that. The only problem? Most of the world's advanced seed technology belongs to a small circle of Western companies: Monsanto, DuPont, Dow, Bayer, Syngenta, BASF. China needed that innovation, but didn't fully control it. Which brings us back to that strange night in the cornfield. Seed stealing is not a scalable strategy, so Beijing shifted its approach. If you want the tech, buy the company. Between 2015 and 2017, the global seed and pesticide industry consolidated into four giants: Bayer, Syngenta, Corteva, BASF. Syngenta stood out, a top seed company worldwide, a global leader in crop protection chemicals, thousands of scientists and R&D centers around the world, a massive portfolio of patents and biotech traits. And politically, buying a Swiss company would be far easier than attempting to purchase an American one. So, China's state-owned giant ChemChina made a historic offer: $43 billion in cash. At the time, the largest overseas acquisition China had ever attempted. After clearing scrutiny from U.S. regulators, EU authorities, and antitrust officials, the deal went through in 2017. China now controlled one of the four pillars of global agricultural technology. What China gained: 1. A biotech powerhouse under Chinese ownership. Owning Syngenta helps Beijing shift domestic public opinion about GMOs. It reframes the technology as Chinese-backed, not foreign or threatening. 2. A seat in the control room of global agriculture. Syngenta sells seeds and crop protection everywhere: the Americas, Europe, Asia. This gives China deeper insight into global food production and direct relationships with major producers. In business terms, China didn't just buy a company, it bought influence. China is now pushing hard to commercialize GM corn and soy at home. Pilot programs are expanding, yields are rising, investments in biotech R&D are accelerating. Internally, China still battles public skepticism rooted in food safety scandals of past decades. Externally, the strategy is a clear win. China owns one of the most influential ag-tech companies on Earth. It strengthened its position in global grain and feed markets. It reduced vulnerability to foreign suppliers. But behind all of this lies a deeper motivation, one rooted in history. Why food security is emotional for Chinese leadership? The Great Chinese Famine of 1959 to 1961 was one of the worst disasters in modern history. Tens of millions died. It was man-made, caused by political decisions and failed agricultural policies. Many of China's current leaders grew up in the shadow of that tragedy. Their promise is simple: never again. That fear shapes almost every food security decision Beijing makes, and it makes a $43 billion investment look less like a business deal and more like insurance. The big question: is GMO tech a lifeline or a risk? A strange car in a cornfield led to an FBI case. That case exposed China's hunger for seed technology. That hunger triggered one of the biggest cross-border acquisitions in agricultural history. All because one country is terrified of ever running out of food again. So now the question shifts to you. Are genetically modified crops a necessary tool to feed a growing population? Or are they a risky concentration of power in a handful of corporations and governments? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.